All right, it's winter, so our attention is a lot on shelters. In the summertime, you know, as our viewers know, we live in a van, so we tend to just sleep in the van. We go to free campsites, set up hammocks as we need it. We've got our front porch for a little bit of shelter. So shelter isn't really a big deal. Shelter is more of a, my dog's puking over there. Shelter is more something for the cold weather, you know, like when the cold rain's coming down, the front porch sometimes doesn't cut it. You got the cold wind.
And we're talking about
shelter.
A front porch on our minivan.
Yeah, we've got a video on that if you're not sure what we're talking about. It's just a way to hook up a tarp with some PVC pipe. So in the winter, we build something a little more advanced when we can. We showed you the teepee in one of our recent videos, and that's kind of what Teresa uses for her kind of getaway retreat, just a place to be by herself sometimes. This is our go-to shelter near where we park the van. I call this a dog tent, which was a name for the shelters, the tents built during the War of Northern Aggression. So it's got that same kind of style. I'll show you the simple part first. So I started off with 2 tripods. And you're going to kind of have to follow me because our sound quality on our iPad here. So this was a tripod. This triangle here on one end, it had a stick coming down, which I have cut off since I've got a stone wall and a chimney now. That holds it up. On the other side, I still have the pole for the tripod. Now, I've got really junky wood here. I just used whatever was available. We're near a really disturbed tract of land with a lot of sweet gum and pine. So this is an experiment. I don't want to take the good lumber for an experiment for a seasonal shelter that we only use half the year. So really what I'm trying to see is what I can get away with. Not what the best thing is, but what is good enough. So that's why I use some of the, if you're really good with tree identification, you might think, why is he using sweet gum? That's why. And once you have the 2 tripods, you just get a good ridge pole. And then you create an A-frame, and that's basically a dog tent. You've got a pretty good shelter beginning then. If you ever watch the show Alone, a lot of their shelters start this way. For covering, we always grab plastic when we see it. If I see a sheet of plastic or a tarp beside the road or just trash somewhere, I grab it because I will always find a use for it. So again, you might be thinking, why don't you go to Lowe's and get one of those great big tarps? They're not very expensive. Because I want to see what I can do with no money, with what I can scavenge and find. Because then if I ever do want to build something and invest a little bit of money, I'll know how to do it. It'll be even easier than trying to troubleshoot with all this scrap stuff. Mm-hmm. So part of the fun, part of the experiment for me is using scrap stuff. I start from the bottom, I shingle it, so I cover it as I go to help shed the water. I definitely want to bring your attention to this piece, this plastic sheet up here. In former videos, we've talked about how to make a grommet with a sweet gum ball twisted in. So that's what that is, since it doesn't have natural grommets. And then landscaping twine that we find beside the road. This creates, it's over a really threadbare camouflage tarp. So it lets in a lot of light. We've got natural light here. It creates a skylight. Something I did for the first time this year is build a chimney. Because last year that worked really well. It blocked wind, it trapped a little bit of heat, and it shed rain. So it was a big improvement. I wanted to see how I could improve it even more because it would be nice to have a warm space to go into. So I built a fireplace. I didn't have any good equipment to carry all these rocks, so this was a lot of work. So I wasn't too picky about the rocks I used. I tried to find fairly flat ones, but there's a lot of round chunks in here too. This is mortared together with what's called survival cement, which may be the same thing as cob, I'm not sure. But basically survival cement. I found a hill in the woods because I don't want to create a bunch of dips. That just creates like cesspools that mosquitoes can breed. So I find where a tree's fallen and left a big mound of dirt, and I level it off, and that's where I get my dirt from. Add water, make mud, and then I mix in debris. I used old grass mats from former years. I used leaves. That's what this pile of leaves is here for, some extra after the survival cement. And you mix it to kind of a thick pancake batter consistency. And even using imperfect rocks, it would have worked so much better if I had perfectly flat rocks and took my time. But being in a hurry and even using these imperfect rocks, if I leveled off each layer with the survival cement and then added it and just leveled it flat, it worked good enough. This is sturdy. Never mind the crumbling stuff there.
And it just rained yesterday.
Yeah, it just poured rain yesterday. This thing has been through a hurricane so far and a couple really heavy rainstorms. I want to see what happens over the winter. I want to see if this ever seasons and gets hard where it stays hard, kind of like pottery. Or what's happening so far when it gets wet is this turns back into mud. It'll get really slimy and slick like mud again. It's got a few leaks. Not many. It's holding up really well so far, so I'm impressed. I've got a fire going in there now, and I can see at times tiny little bits of smoke coming out from cracks in the fireplace. And I also built a rock wall. This is made out of wood, just lashed together, floor lashing on the A-frame. But I built a rock wall just to see how that does for 1/3 of the way. For another 1/3 of the way, I just chinked all the cracks with survival cement. And for the top 1/3, I stuffed the chinks. I did my chinking with just debris. So these are 3 experiments. I just want to see how it weathers over the winter, what fails, what leaks, what kind of maintenance I need to do to keep this up. And you can see up here, I did a few inches that were just survival cement. There's no rocks here, and I did that so I can stick these sticks in. And these sticks will hold up this pan I found in the woods. So that helps keep the rain out of my chimney.
Good day to you, sir.
And what I found is on a windy day when I first did this would blow off really easy. But with the creosote and stuff coming up from the smoke, it creates kind of a dark, sticky surface. So I just lifted this a little bit earlier. But when I did, I had to kind of pop it off. It was starting to stick to the stick. So it holds on there better and better over time. Anything else about the chimney before we go inside, Teresa?
No, it was a lot of work, and I only carried a few rocks up.
And I anticipate at some point I'm going to have to patch some of this, which will be just making more survival cement, looking for the cracks and patching them. But so far, this is doing well enough after, what would you say, how long have we used this? More than a month? A month?
Yeah, I'd say like a little more than a month.
A little more than a month. So far it's still working well enough that I'm not going to do anything to maintenance it. It's good enough. So let's go inside. Let's see, I don't think there's anything else to talk about on the outside. And again, I just want to really emphasize, this is not like a blueprint. It's just kind of piecing together what you understand about shelter. For instance, 45-degree angles. This is a little bit steep, but basically 45-degree angles help shed water really well. So just a way to have a 45-degree angle to shed water. There were some leaks in the tarp yesterday during a heavy rain. It wasn't enough to really bother me, but if I do want to do something about it, one of the next things I'll be thinking of is pounding the stake into the ground and finding some ways to pull some of these layers out. That will also help shed water.